Call the meeting to order. Rick Holloway is at the fire station, and I was just talking to him about the password. I wanted to make sure we had somebody at that place, and he was struggling to get it right. So if you're ready, Carl.
Yep.
Okay.
I'm ready.
I will call the meeting of the Saxtons River Village Board of Trustees to order.
Do I?
And yay. And I will remind everybody that this is a hybrid meeting, although it looks like everybody in attendance is online. If you have difficulties, there are 2 phone numbers on the agenda, which you can use to reach out to. We'll start with any public comments. Are there any public comments tonight? I know a number of you are on to talk about the water infrastructure, which is the next item on the agenda. So this would be public comments not related to that. All right. Hearing none, we move to what I called the drinking water evaluation, which is a project that Carl Ball has been working on with Scott Pickup. And Scott, I think we should give you the lead on this.
Sure. All right, Amy, can everybody hear the audio okay? All good? Okay. So
let me just interrupt for a minute. If anybody has any difficulty, please type it into the chat and I'll keep an eye on it.
Yeah, that's great.
Go ahead, Scott.
Okay. So over the summer, actually prior to that, had a couple of conversations with Chris Coda and some other folks about some long-range planning issues, which it could potentially impact Bellows, the Bellows Falls Water Department, Saxtons River, and potentially the Academy as well. So the Academy folks had been doing some work on their system just because of some infrastructure age and supply concerns. It made sense at that point to see if there was a way that we could just look at a comprehensive overview of what options might be available. We're sort of reaching this new infrastructure emphasis with the federal programs, and there's going to be a lot of money, especially for rural drinking water. And so it seemed an appropriate time to work with some of our engineering professionals and get some sense of what options might be available. There's money available in the state revolving loan fund to do this sort of preliminary planning, and then come back at some point to the trustees with a developed proposal and see if it makes sense to go out and look for investments, longer range infrastructure dollars, and sort of setting up some of the concerns for the next 50 to 75 years. So, I mean, these are significant investments, and nobody is saying that we're going to do anything quickly, but I think the idea is to take a hard look, come back to this group and say, do some things make sense? Is there some monies available now, sort of once in a generation opportunity? And do we then go forward and try to secure some funding and see if there's some ways that we can enhance the current system and its capacities? So we started very simply. We were looking at just some of the rural fire flows and some of the capacity concerns. We met out on the Academy, and Chris, you'll have to help me when we met. Was it August? I don't remember exactly when we were out there.
Yes.
Okay, so we met in August, went through some of their concerns and some of their long-term strategic goals. They seemed to overlap with some of the things that maybe made sense for us to take a harder look. So that brought us to the point where we engaged the engineers. They developed the proposal with a scope. A bunch of folks looked at it and decided this might make some sense. Let's sort of bring it to the board at this point and see what the board's pleasure is as we go forward. So that sort of brings us to tonight. It's a 10,000-foot view. Maybe I'll leave it to Chris of some other folks if they want to jump in and get into more specifics about some of their concerns or some of the opportunities that they might see from this.
Chris, that sounds like the invitation to speak.
Sounds like it, does it? Yes. We've had some preliminary talks from Vermont Academy with Senator Leahy's office prior to us meeting with Scott Pickup. And the staff in Leahy's office was was thinking that this monies were going to become available through this act that was signed just today or yesterday. And Senator Leahy's office is really interested in putting some money in southern Vermont and not just in Chittenden County. And we were told that if we could get the study done, that there was a very good, high percentage possibility that the monies would become available through the Leahy's office to fund this water project. Vermont Academy has an old system which has been around for a long time. And we always worry a little bit about the supply that we have. We have a 30,000 gallon storage up on Rockham Hill Road, excuse me. And we're tied into the Saxtons River fire hydrant system on the north side of the Saxtons River, so that we go down into Main Street. We also provide a few houses with water coming down there. Now, if by chance we had a severe fire on Main Street or somewhere downtown where the village wanted to use the hydrant system, it could run us out of water in a very short period of time, hours, not days. And when that happens, then the school is out of water, and we have to think about shutting down the school if we have no water. There is a cross connection per se with having it on the fire hydrant system. And in the long range view, we think that it would be prudent to look at expanding the water storage up on Rockham Hill, but also perhaps a secondary water storage to connect with the fire hydrant system that's now in existence. So we approached this with Scott that if we could get this initial engineering study done and be able to hand it off to Leahy's office, they said they would bring it right to the table, and we would have again an excellent chance of funding that. We thought that not only would it benefit Vermont Academy, I happen to be a trustee at Vermont Academy, but it would also benefit the village of Saxtons River. Now, we have a couple systems, and I'm not sure whether the engineering study or proposal that I have got to everybody. If you didn't, and I got this through Scott, who was in contact with MSK Engineering.
Mhm.
But you have the Warner Center water system, which has some need to take a good hard look at. The Vermont Academy on the other side of the river, and how they both support the fire hydrant system and a number of different houses in the state, in the village of Saxtons River. Now, in this proposal that Scott was able to get from MSK, they're also talking about bringing water from Bellows Falls to Saxtons River. Common sense tells me that probably that's not a viable study. The Saxtons River has their own sewer system, and I'm sure that a few years ago, when they talked about hooking the Saxtons River sewer system to Bellows Falls, it went down as a negative, and I'm not sure that we would not be whistling in the wind if we thought that we were going to bring water out from Bellows Falls to Saxtons River. The key, I think, is to look at the Vermont Academy system, the backup water system that you have for your hydrants, and the Warner system. Sean Campbell might be able to give you a little bit more detail on how the Saxtons River water system and VA water system kind of tie together. Sean?
Well, good evening. I guess the first thing I would do is shift a little bit in the way that you were talking, Chris, and that was just language, but I think it was confusing it a little bit as I was listening, and that was that Vermont Academy was on the Saxtons River, excuse me, hydrant system, and it really is the other way around. It's the Vermont Academy water system that was extended to provide some fire protection to the community back in 1974. And those hydrants, there was a hydrant at the bottom of the ramp. It was extended down the street to the corner of Academy Avenue and then teed out to where the gas station used to be. And then obviously the other one is over on the bottom, on the other side of the street, but at the bottom of Pleasant Street. That system is designed to, the water system is designed to provide 500 gallons per minute for an hour. That is the absolute minimum that the state actually will qualify, and whatever the proper terms are, for fire protection in those dormitories, school buildings that require it. And it literally is, if you think about a fire truck pumping 1,000 gallons a minute, and if you had a big fire, if you have 2 fire trucks pumping 1,000 gallons a minute, you don't have water for very long. What that would do is to create a negative pressure in the system. It's a gravity feed system. It would create a negative pressure along the system, which then would be viewed by the state, and Rob can speak to this probably better than I do. I'm sure he knows much more about it. But if there's a negative pressure, then the state is concerned that it is that if there are leaks, generally, the leaks will go from the water line out into the ground. If there's negative pressure, it goes the other way, and that is considered a contamination. So Vermont Academy, if there was a big fire, whether it was at Vermont Academy or in the community and the hydrants were used, there would almost assuredly be a situation where Vermont Academy would not be allowed to pump water until the system had been cleared, and I'm not sure how long that would take. So that's a real problem for Vermont Academy. And in my view, that's a real problem for the community from a not only an immediate point of view, but for the long term, in terms of making sure that Vermont Academy, which is I think quite important to the community, is stable and supported and able to keep going. If you have an operation, doesn't matter what it is, if you have an operation that is not reliably able to operate, it obviously goes down in people's opinion about it. So I think that's critical, and I do think that the original meeting that we had with Scott was really about looking at whether or not there's a viable tie to the fire system, and, or making sure that that is also a reliable system for the community, as a way to attract more support and financial resources to do something at Vermont Academy, which is really to expand the supply. The supply needs to be minimally double, and probably even more than that. But so that's where I come from. And I've been generously invited to this meeting because the water line goes across my property. I don't see how that has any thing to do with anything, actually, from my concern. That's a right of way that the water system has. It's here, whether I own this property or not. It's there, regardless of my opinion. So I think that's right now I'm dealing with beaver ponds, which do actually have I have a concern about with regard to the system, because the beavers like to dam right over that water line. But anyway.
So Sean, can you wrap up? Because I've got a couple more people
I'm
waiting.
wrapped up.
Okay, great. Okay, good. So we've heard clearly from Scott. And for those of you who have not seen the memo, I'm happy to redistribute it. Scott, we weren't clear ahead of time about how to make that public. So every trustee has read it, but it hasn't gone beyond the trustees. So now I'd like to make sure that we call on Carl, who began for this board by raising the issue of water infrastructure in the light of the ARPA funds that were coming to the village. So I know it's important to recognize VA's role in moving forward, but I think this is truly a village issue. So Carl, I'm putting you on the spot.
Sure. So I had some concerns about whether or not there was adequate supply to the village for expansion of businesses, for example, sprinkler systems, water to support a new industry that might want to come into town, whatever. And originally I had thought we would want to look at the various water supplies into the village. It turns out that's simpler than I had thought, that there are the wells on Clark Court and Vancourt Drive, Warner Center, and VA. And then take a look at how the fire system is supplied, which is from Warner Center on the south side of the river, VA on the north side. From the meeting that Chris had alluded to back in August, I'm a little bit more concerned than I was about the availability of water for the fire hydrants and other such purposes. That, I think, would be the village's prime concern at this juncture. I note that the correspondence with MSK talks about interest in the village in connecting to a municipal water system. I would have to agree with Chris. I don't see that as really of interest when everybody here already has their own well. And
so Carl, let's not speculate too much. I want to make sure we get everyone's point of view out on this, but do you want to talk more about your purposes in pursuing this for the village?
Well, yeah, the purpose is to evaluate what the water supply is for the village. So that might include such as what's the capacity of the aquifer that the wells are all drawn from, or whether or not expanding the connections that we have through VA or the Warner Center could better supply needs for example, fire protection. And finding an engineering plan that would better solve the village needs, maybe identify what the village needs are a little bit more clearly, and finding money to pay for it. Okay, I'll stop there.
All right, so good time to stop and see if anybody has questions, either trustee questions or questions for the public, while we have Scott and the memo in the spotlight. No questions. Well, I have a couple. So I agree with Carl that water infrastructure for the village is an important issue. And I'm not as sure that Minard Pond is a bad solution. One of the things that I hear over and over again in the ARPA discussions is that water infrastructure is a good way to spend ARPA funds, both through the state and through the various municipalities. And we've begun to look at that. We don't have to make a decision. We actually have a couple of years to explore that. Would the ARPA funds be used to pay for the study, Scott? What is your mechanism for paying for the study outlined in your engineering memo?
Well, MS&K recommended that we look at Vermont Rural Water. They have a revolving loan fund program, and they do fund technical and engineering analysis. So that would be your first source. And then I think if we're approved, and there's an application process, and if we're approved for the money, then I think the next phase would be to go back and again have a conversation with the trustees and with the engineers about scoping to make sure that we give ourselves the best opportunity to not just look at ARPA monies, but look at Clean Water Act funds, to look at other infrastructure investment funds that might be coming out of this new legislation. So I think that's going to be part of this whole process going forward.
So it sounds like at this stage in the game, we could be grant funded. This does not mean a local expenditure.
I think Carl had a question, and I'll go ahead and
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Carl.
Yeah, so you talk about a revolving loan fund, which is not grant funded, but we would have to repay. The memo writes this is a contract between the engineering firm and the village of Saxtons River. And I'm not sure that we have $45,000 or want to borrow $45,000 for this purpose. So I would like to follow up on whether or not there is grant as opposed to loan money available, whether or not ARPA funds, which is what we were originally thinking, could be used for the engineering study, or whether they would only be available for construction implementing the engineering recommendations.
Well, we can get some more specifics. Vermont Rural Water was at our meeting back in August. They've been loosely associated with just the conversation. So we can get more technical feedback from them, Carl. That's not a problem.
So if I could just follow up then, are you looking at the village to front money for this? Or
at this point, no, at this point, I wasn't asking for money directly. I think our goal is to see if the engineers can find a technical program that will support the expenditure. There are programs beyond the SRF program that don't require local money up front. So,
okay, but are you looking at the village to fund the engineering study, which is how it appears to me from the way the documents are written?
No, I wasn't coming to you tonight looking for an appropriation. I'm just simply, we're exploring this engagement. The next step would be to go back with your questions and concerns, as well as see what other options now are available to us in terms of this proposal and how it could potentially then come back to the trustees for action if there is a local match or other sources that might be able to support it without having to ask you guys for money up front.
Rick, I saw your hand.
Yeah, I read through the proposal. I guess my question was for Chris and Sean, sort of, is part of their being here because there's some interest in perhaps partnering with VA and the village together to work on expanding your current water system, or are you just here letting us know the constraints of your water system?
Well, I think we're tied together, seeing that we're providing the village with the fire system downtown, and so we're not independent of each other. We're kind of tied together, in my view, and so we need to work collectively to do this. we, if we went off by ourselves, one of the things that they might say, well, you need to separate from the other, and that's not what we intend to do at all. And when talking with Leahy's office and with this U.S. Department of Agriculture, a woman named Jen Palmiento, they said that we need to do a study, and I think the study will benefit both VA and Saxtons River, and that's where we're at right now. And then I think the further funding for the bigger project is from our initial talks with Senator Leahy's office are very promising. So I think it's a benefit to both VA and to the Saxon River, because we're kind of tied together as such, I think.
Rick, do you have a follow-up?
I guess that's, I guess part of my question was, the continued being tied together and possible growth within the village of, if you can grow your water system and there became a need, like, Main Street Arts has, when they did their renovation, they had to put in a big tank, as we're looking at the fire station here and possible changes here, there, what is, I guess, is there our consideration of additional headroom for things like that for the village, or is it more just trying to maintain what the connections that we do have?
Well, no, I think a part of what Sean was saying earlier is that we need to expand the storage at the source, and if we do that, then that's going to benefit
Okay.
the possibilities that you're talking about.
Yeah, great, thank you.
Rob, I'm going to put you on the spot too, because I know you're the person who understands the wastewater treatment plant. Are there questions you have based on your knowledge of that piece of the water infrastructure?
No.
Okay.
No.
Matt, I think you're the only trustee that hasn't had something to add to this conversation.
No, I'm all set.
Okay. So Scott, I think you're here tonight to get from us a sense of whether we'd like to pursue the engineering study. Am I right about that?
Right. We didn't want to go forward with any more activity with grants or other options if the board really wasn't interested in pursuing.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's an interest to at least get the base level engineering done as Chris has described and as the proposal is somewhat laid out, I'll go back to the engineers, ask them to give me a range of options that might be available to us for financing, and then come back to this board with that as well as a proposal, and then ask you at that point for some action.
What is your pleasure, board members?
I've got a question about that. Does this engineering go out to bid, or the engineer is already established?
Well, they were chosen because they had already had some expertise with like systems. They had done a project close to what was done or what we're looking at in Saxtons River and in Bennington, as well as they've also got some other local knowledge. So we felt that they would be the best in terms of giving us the most expertise based on our system. We did not go out and solicit multiple bids.
Okay. And a follow-up question, I know it's been talked about. So agreeing to this doesn't put us in a position where we have to come up with money at this time. Is that correct?
No, right. I think the next step is for me to go back to them and say, okay, lay out what options might be available so the board has an understanding based on this proposal and this scope of service, and then come back to you guys with that, as well as whatever those options are laid out, and then you can make a determination to go from there.
Okay.
Carl, you have your hand up.
I'm sorry, I think Matt is not yet finished?
No, I'm all set. Go ahead, Carl.
Okay.
Sorry, my video's not.
I'd like to say that I think we really need to follow up with this, that we are dependent for our fire protection on the VA system under an agreement where our access to that can be canceled should VA feel a need to keep its water for itself. And we need to have some protection against that. And aside from that, I think VA is an important part of the community, and it's good for the village to work together with them on a problem of mutual interest. I think that there are maybe some tweaking in what we asked for in the engineering study that might need to be talked about. I don't think we need to go into details of that right now. But I would be in favor of following through at this point, but not committing to spend money on it yet.
So that sounds almost like a motion, Carl.
No, it was just a comment. I'd like everybody else to have a chance to speak before I make a motion.
Okay, well, I'll speak. I also think this study is important for the village. One of the things that I'm noticing lately, and I've actually known it for probably 15 years, is that people want to move to Saxtons River. And our houses, if you put a house up for sale in Saxtons River, it sells in a flash. There aren't a ton of houses, but I wonder if it's possible that having a public water system would make places like the Inn more desirable. I'm also as a place to develop. I mean, I think it's difficult to conceive of the work that would have to be done if that place were somehow revamped into, let's say, a modern multiple family housing unit, which is a long way from what we've got now. So this is pie in the sky. I understand that. But I agree with Rick that what the hoops that Main Street Arts had to jump through were arduous hoops. And I'd love to have the kind of town that a small brewery would want to move into. But I think the kind of public water infrastructure we have now would not support a brewery. I also worry about the houses served by the Warner Center system. I know there have been some difficulties with the well there and the water coming from that system. And as somebody who lives on Clark Court and is one of 7 houses on a well that has been just fine, but I'd also love to know that, that's really a durable system. So for those reasons, I'm definitely in favor of going ahead with this proposal.
And those of us on most of those shared well systems up in the upper village, as Louise once referred to it, I'm on one of the shared wells on Clark Court, and we pay a fee every year to make sure that we have money to maintain that system. And so I think that I don't think that should be left out of the question if we do come up with some sort of a public system for the village itself. And how and where that money goes, I think would be somewhat dependent upon the agreement and arrangement. If it was from, say, the VA system, we would have to work through all of that. But it's not, I don't think the conversation is just providing free water for people in the village.
Carl.
Yeah, I would just to follow up on that. I think that any sort of public system that we would develop, whether it be connecting to Bellows Falls or developing our own, would be expensive. It would be expensive to put it into place, and it would involve an unexpected and not insignificant expense to the people who use it. And I think that people who are satisfied with their own private wells would not be receptive to that. I think I understand what you're saying, Amy, that there are advantages to a public system, but I'm not sure that it's in the best interest of the residents of the village, and that would be something that we'd have to look into going forward. It may be worth continuing, as the proposal suggests, to look at connection to Bellows Falls, or look at development of a village system, but I'm not sure those are likely to go very far.
Okay,
I think that public system, some sort of a public well or arrangement like we have with BA now is necessary for fire prevention. And businesses could hook up sprinklers to that. I'm not sure that would necessarily be useful for drinking water, but and we can see what the numbers come out to.
so
I
Scott,
have
I
a
assume,
comment.
I'm sorry?
I have a comment.
Okay, if you could you turn your
No,
camera
I
on?
can't. I can't turn my video on, so.
Okay, can you type into the chat when you have a comment? It's hard to know, but it's working so far, so why am I complaining? Go ahead, Matt. Sorry.
I just wanted to agree with Carl on that. There's a lot of private wells here in town, and I'm not sure how this project just went from one thing to a whole village water system. So I'm not in favor of that at this time.
So we have before us a proposal to work with MSK engineers. And Scott has offered to go back to them and ask for what funding mechanisms they see for the study before he returns to the village to discuss actual appropriation. Are you ready to move on this, board members? Carl?
I think that maybe in the further conversations with MSK, we might want to talk a little bit about the scope of the proposal too, based on the discussion we've had tonight. It may alter what they intend to do or what we ask for.
Scott, what is your timeline like for this proposal? Do we have the time to discuss it once more in our first meeting in December?
Yeah, I think maybe, Amy, the best thing to do is try to get a video or Zoom meeting with the engineers, and whoever wants to participate certainly can talk about scope or other concerns, make sure that, they do a full vetting of all the options. And so then it'll come back to you in December. I do think there is some pieces of this that are a little time sensitive, only from the standpoint of, like any appropriations, things come in cycles. So, the longer it takes to get the proposal and then to get the work done and then to come back and do the findings and present, there might be lags and opportunities for the village, in terms of monies that are coming up. But I think December, we're still probably in pretty good shape. So I'm a concerned that if it goes far into 2022, you might find yourselves, looking at missing a whole cycle of opportunity. That's all.
Yep. I'm also concerned that today's announcement from Senator Leahy puts
It will
different
accelerate interest dramatically.
clock running. Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do you feel about Scott's proposal that several of us attend a Zoom meeting with the engineers to explore further the scope, and then we vote on this in December? I'm asking Carl, Rick, and Matt that question. Rick?
I don't have time for another Zoom meeting personally right now.
Okay.
I just would like to get things clarified. I don't disagree with what Matt said, but so my question that would be on the table is, are we talking about a municipal system for fire protection for the village, or are we talking about a municipal system that would supply water to residentials and to businesses? And I think, that that could have an impact, I think, on the way we all vote and think about next steps.
So I
Just-
would, go ahead, Carl.
Just a question for Scott. My understanding is that the engineers would be looking at both sets of options. Is that correct?
Yeah, they have to do alternatives analysis, Carl. So there'll be different options available because it makes you eligible for various levels of funding. So
Okay.
that's part of what they are, that's part of what we're paying them for, part of the study and the analysis. It doesn't mean that the more comprehensive or the largest solution, let's put it that way, would be the preferred alternative. There might be 2 or 3 alternatives within that analysis based on what they come up with.
Thank you.
Yep.
Matt, go ahead. Thanks. Good job on the hand. I can see it very clearly.
Just found it. So again, we see, at the beginning of this, I thought we were partnering with Vermont Academy to expand their storage capability to cover the school in the event that the hydrants were used. And now it seems as though we've gone on to municipal water source for the village to some degree. So I guess I'd like a clarification of that. I'm not, I'm a little confused right now as to where we're going with this, even at this juncture. And I'm not opposed at all of partnering with Vermont Academy to expand and their water storage for themselves and obviously for the village. So can someone clarify what we're doing?
So Scott, is this what you meant when you talked about alternative analysis?
That'll be part of it. Don't forget, I mean, you've got a couple of issues here. You've got interconnects, right, between, as Chris had described, the Warner system. You've got interconnects between the Vermont Academy system and your rural fire protection. And there's also some, although limited, overlap to some homes and potentially businesses. And you've got capacity concerns. All of that overlays on top of concerns about the age of the system that VA is currently operating with, and that they have capacity issues that are potentially constraining their operation as they look to the future. So all of those issues, I think, are on the table in relationship to the study and what the engineers are going to look at. How that information is then segmented and proposed back to the trustees for action is completely up to the board in terms of the level, I guess, of complexity you want to pursue. So there'll probably be some pretty simple solutions. There'll probably be some very large and more comprehensive solutions. There'll be larger dollars obviously attached to the larger projects and maybe the capacity related issues, and some of the interconnect and the fire protection only might be much less money. But until we do the analysis, I really am misleading you to tell you that we can even start to speculate on the numbers. I think what the engineers do is prioritize that, lay it out for you, and then based on that information, you have a choice of pursuing federal funds, other funds, pursuing limited updates, or pursuing other options. So at that point, really, your decisions are, at least you've got a range of decisions, and there is no, there's no incentive at this point to point towards one solution. I think what we're trying to do is give you a range of options.
Matt, did you want to follow up?
Yeah, I'm getting there. I don't need to get hung up on this. I just don't. I guess I just don't want to be put in a position where someone comes up with the plan that to upgrade Vermont Academy, we have to have a municipal water source for all of Saxtons River, which I don't think at this time is needed with all the private wells that are out there. So I just wonder the information that's given on the onset when it's, you go to these engineers and say, what? We're trying to upgrade Vermont Academy systems. They're hooked to the fire hydrants. They'll drain, their system in, 10 minutes of pumping water. So that's the hitch with the village. As far as I can see at this point, I'm just concerned that it's going to go into, oh, you've got to have your own water system for the whole village. That's the only way to go. So I'm just cautious, I guess, at how this is going. I mean, going to be presented, and that's my concern with it.
Okay. Other concerns? Rick, Carl, the public? Carl, you have your hand up.
Yeah, not something that we need to decide now, but I think between now and the December meeting, Scott, it would be good to have a hard idea of how this engineering study would be funded.
Well, yeah, that would be one of the things that we would come back to you with, Carl, for sure.
Okay,
Options outside the SRF or options outside of, Saxons River appropriation. So we'll be talking to the engineers about that specifically.
okay, thank you.
Board members, it's up to you. It seems to me that we're at the point of a consensus, but we often look for a motion to vote. If you're feeling like that would help you, we can go that way. And I see Matt has his hand up.
I do. I thought I lowered my hand.
You're okay, Matt. Okay.
Well, what do you want for a motion? I'm certainly support moving forward with this phase of it.
So Carl, it sounds like Matt has moved that the Saxons River Village trustees approve of moving forward with the MSK engineering study. Is there a second? Rick, I see your hand.
Is that a motion, Matt?
Yes.
Rick has seconded that motion. Are we ready for a vote, or is there more discussion?
I got distracted by the fireman going out.
Okay, I have Gordon with a question, and also Carl.
Okay,
Gordon, I'm going to let you go first if you want to unmute. You're still muted, Gordon.
Anyway, it's a kind of a dumb question, but I've heard about the issues with Vermont Academy and the hydrants over there. I assume this study will also investigate the way that the upper village is hydrated, so to speak, from for its hydrants as well. Is that correct?
Yes.
yes.
Okay.
I will, Scott, with your permission, I will post the memo, the MSK memo on our kiosks, and I'll circulate it to everybody who's here tonight. Is that all right
Okay.
with you? Okay.
That's great.
So we're talking about a Zoom meeting, if people want to refine even this study, but this is quite a lengthy memo laying out the alternatives that we want the engineers to research. Carl, go ahead. I saw your hand.
Yeah, I was going to say, and I don't know if this is appropriate as an amendment or not, but I'm in favor of proceeding as Scott had suggested with the Zoom meeting with the engineers.
Let's do that separately. I just want to make sure that we're all on board, or if we have objections,
I
that we
don't
get
think,
those out.
excuse me, but I don't think they're separable. I mean, or my understanding from what Scott had suggested was that we would hold the Zoom meeting and then decide whether to move forward, or perhaps I misunderstood.
I think.
Hello, everybody. It's all happening.
I think that the reason for a more constricted view was to narrow the focus of the engineering study. My understanding is the reason that a number of plans are included in that study is so that we have alternatives which will be researched. Not that we want a municipal public system, but that possibility is researched by the engineers. But I'm happy, it just seemed to me appropriate to vote first on whether we would want to go through with the engineering study and then on whether we want to give more feedback to the engineers. But I'm happy to be contradicted by you, Carl.
No, I guess that's okay.
Any other discussion? It's been moved and seconded that, I'm paraphrasing, that the village board approve moving ahead with the MSK engineering study. Is that pretty much what we said in the motion, Carl?
That's pretty much what the motion said, yes.
Okay, great.
I'm not sure what it means, but that's what it said.
Would you like to ask more questions?
No.
Maybe, Amy, the only thing I'll offer is that if you want to add a whereas or a second piece to that, whereas we will bring you the refined alternatives for funding for consideration at your December meeting, so that there is some secondary action that takes place. The board is not taking any financial responsibility tonight. They're just simply moving the process along with some indication that in December it'll be back in front of you with some additional information, and at that point then you have the right, or you'll have a second opportunity to see where you want to go.
Okay. Would you like that as part of the motion? Carl, Matt, Rick? Let's see, it's Matt's motion. That just makes clear that there's no funding appropriation at this time, that it would happen in December.
Right.
Yep, you can add that to the motion.
Are you all right with adding that for the second, Rick? Okay. So did you catch that, the gist of that, Carl?
Yep.
How about now? Are we ready for a vote?
Yep.
All right. It's been moved and seconded that the village trustees forward this proposal with the follow-up in December to review how it will be paid for. All in favor, signify with your hand. And it's unanimous. Good. Okay, that piece of business is done.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody, for coming out and making this process clear to us.
Right. We'll talk soon.
Okay. All right, back to the agenda. Wow, it's easy to see. That was the big item tonight. All right, the Windham County Sheriff contract. We now have some more information. Rick, I know you've been busy at Chroma. I hate to put you on the spot, but you have identified yourself as the point person on this.
Yeah, well, I reached out to them. I sent you what I got back was that they have been having staffing issues and they were going to fulfill their hours before the end of the year is what they told me. And when I asked if we could get some sort of a monthly report on their patrol hours, I got radio silence. So I will go back around again to that and ask them what's going on. And I'm sure everyone saw in the newspaper where they're going to raise their rates.
Yep. And that's definite. We have that as a quote from them in a letter that they, and I can share that with you. The rates are going up to higher than they've been before. Pretty much what the news article said.
I came up with 83, 8,400 was my rough.
Oh, I didn't
Yes.
even think to do the math. So you found the annual contract to be $8,400?
No, we currently pay 7,500. And so with the increase, I don't remember what it's very distracting here right now.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I don't remember what the dollar amount they said they were going to increase was, but I came up with somewhere between a $1,200 and a $1,500 a year increase for what we currently pay.
They're saying $60 an hour for less than 2,000 hours.
Sorry, Carl,
They say $60 an hour for less.
is what
than
they're going to
2,000
increase it
hours.
to.
That's what
Right.
they'll increase it to, yeah.
Matt, you've mentioned before, I think, the idea of going to the state police. No, I'm
No.
wrong about that.
No, we had contract in the past with the state police, but they
Oh, it's
told us
okay. You guys are doing
that
good work.
they were no longer doing contracts like that. So that's why we moved on.
Okay. Do we have any other alternatives?
Nope.
No.
But do we need alternatives?
Yeah, I mean, it's not a huge increase. I don't know how long we've been paying the 7,500, but it'll go up to like 8,640 is at the 144 hours we pay. So it'd be
Okay.
another $1,100, $1,200.
Rob, are you saying something to us?
Yeah, I mean, looking at the price of gas, I mean, what was the price before? $52 an hour? It's going to 60. I mean, it's $8.
Right. It's
It's a
nothing.
no-brainer.
Yeah.
Everything else is going up. I mean, and like you said, the contract's been the same. We don't go up with Athens contract to do their fire protection. We could go up there on, $500 a year.
Yeah.
And make up the difference.
We talked about
Oh.
that last meeting.
No, my bad. My side, I wasn't there, so.
No, that's
bad.
okay.
But
I mean, it's the reality of the world. I mean, people, everything costs more no matter what business you're in or what you do. And, you can't deny some sort of an increase year over year, although all of our customers keep coming back wanting discounts each year. And it's like, well, our costs keep going up. We can't give you discounts. It's not getting cheaper to make stuff.
Yeah.
And so do you need a motion to accept this or?
Well, we won't actually have a contract until the fall, but they're notifying us that their prices are going up now.
Okay.
Carl, go ahead.
Yeah, I just would like follow up to Rick's comment that they will fulfill their hour obligations by the end of the year. We had sort of some specific needs for when and we had coverage, and it doesn't really help us if we get all of our sheriff's hours the week of Christmas, for example, to catch up just to fill in the hours. So I'm just a little bit concerned about whether or not we're really going to get the kind of enforcement we need if they continue to have staffing issues.
Well, we don't.
No action to take. It's just a comment.
We really
Okay.
don't have an option unless we have our own police force. And
Are you volunteering?
no, I'm not.
I did not
Rick?
hear that. La, 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 la.
All right, it sounds like maybe we've come to some consensus. I don't think we need a motion, but I defer to your judgment.
Well, if we don't have a contract,
Yeah, there's nothing to motion on right now. I will try to continue to follow up with the person I chatted with and try to get a little bit more of a clear monthly statement of the hours that they did put in patrolling, and ask them, to Carl's question, like, how many hours, if they know how many hours they owe us, how can they just even more evenly distribute them throughout the rest of the contract, as opposed to, doing 80 hours in the month of December.
Yeah. Carl, do you have specifics on when we need coverage? You referred to that and I found myself kind of blank.
We discussed this maybe 2 years ago when we were talking about the contract with the sheriff. Do you remember, Matt?
Yeah. Yeah, it's always been, and I don't really think we need to use a lot of time this evening to discuss it, but it has been during the summer months, basically when good weather comes around. We've always wanted nighttime patrols coming through randomly, not advertised, and to keep the hoodlums from, doing what they do in the summertime. And I know a lot of people want speed enforcement too, and that's obviously important. But given the year that we've gone through and the staffing that I can imagine that they're dealing with, yeah, we don't really need a lot of coverage in November, December, January, and February. It's mostly summer months, in my view, and that's the way it's been in the past.
And maybe some of the continued discussion with them can be around things like that. Like in the summer, we'd like a Friday and Saturday night drive through every once in a while through like the Rec and Stickney's Field, and that's being a little selfish, I guess. But
no, but that's still in Saxtons River.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it is.
Well, and the Rec isn't technically, but it is owned by the village, correct? So it's it's
Right.
part of our property, and I would. Okay, I'm okay if we move on from this topic for now.
Okay.
I've got work to do.
Mhm.
All right. So with Rick sitting at the fire station, let us move on to meeting spaces in Saxtons River. So I have heard from the Main Street Arts Board, and this is their offer to the trustees of Saxtons River. The Main Street Arts Board has voted to offer the MSA building to the village trustees as meeting space free of charge. Our thinking is summarized thusly: what's good for Saxtons River is good for MSA. My contact, Rick Cowan, the chairman of the board, said the Wi-Fi internet works well, and we will instruct you how to turn the heat up and down for meetings, as well as to provide you with entry codes. And he's given me contact information for the for the board member who manages and schedules the building. So we do have an alternative to the fire station. Comments?
I think about any place would be preferable to the fire station.
Yeah, the front room there, would be nice. I mean, it's actually more visible. People, you could walk by, people could see who's in there, see that something's going on. Here, even with the lights on, it's kind of dark and reclusive. And, thank God for these people doing their jobs here. And this is the first time I've experienced since I've been here, but at least for me with my ADHD, it's distracting with all the trucks in and out and people moving around and stuff happening. It's like, I don't know what the hell anybody's talking about here, because this is too cool. I want to go ride on a fire truck.
I also feel very constrained that whenever I advertise a physical location for the building, I have to say, please don't use it. Please join us online. Don't come in person. There's very little space there given COVID precautions. So this would offer us the opportunity to have a lot more space.
Just before you call on Carl,
Okay.
So the front room is nice and it's bigger, and we probably could have 6-8 people, but there always is the theater upstairs too, if it came to it, where we could host, we could easily even host a village meeting there.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Carl?
I was just related to what Rick was saying. What space in the building were they offering to have us use?
They just say the building.
Okay.
they have voted to offer the MSA building to the village trustees as meeting space free of charge. I would like to pick one space. I mean, I guess we could pick the front room and then advertise if we changed. But this is the kind of, this announcement will have to be made in a, will have to be made through the Brattleboro Reformer. It's enough of a change, so the open meeting law requires that we put out public notice officially. We'll have to do that if we decide to make this our public meeting space.
I would move that we begin the process to move our meetings to Main Street Arts.
Okay. Do you want to say which place in Main Street Arts?
I say the front room for now. And
Okay.
if a meeting gets big enough that we need to move upstairs, then we'd have to decide that at the time if that many people showed up. But I would think the front room where they hold classes, they had, I don't know, 10, 12 people in there for paint night a little while ago.
Okay. Carl, are you waving your hand?
Oh, yeah, I guess I am. I'm not sure that we really need to specify a room. If we just specify it Main Street Arts, then we can post where we are going to be
Okay.
when we get there.
Yeah,
Okay. Rob?
that was pretty much my same comment. Just, I would say do the Main Street building and then post where you're gonna be.
Okay.
Because if you start posting this room and then 6 months from now, you gotta post the main meeting upstairs, you gotta redo it all again according
Well,
to.
and it's a pretty small
rules.
building. Yeah.
Yeah,
The nice thing about that building is they've done the work for us, and there is an elevator that works. It's very accessible. The bathrooms are accessible. It's got a lot going for it. So we have a motion on the floor from Rick to
I'll
move
second.
our public
Second.
meetings. Okay. Carl
Move to-
seconded it first, I think. Is there more discussion? Okay, all in favor, signify with a show of hands.
Aye.
And it's unanimous. Great. Committee reports and updates, the fire station. And I am assuming the fire station committee meeting perhaps didn't happen. I found out today that Ellen Clark Lawrence has not been well. But I open this agenda for the fire station for your comments.
Rick's there. So no, a meeting didn't happen yet.
Okay, is there anything else about the fire station? All right. Wastewater treatment plant. Carl, what's our status on the
Okay, so
contract wrapping up?
I heard this afternoon that USDA has everything that they need for closing out the project. Tata and Howard have given them everything that they expected Tata and Howard to give them. So we can go ahead and pay that invoice.
Okay,
The advance on the grant, the last grant funds came through a couple weeks ago. I heard today that they have everything they need. There will need to be a couple of annual reports written, which I guess is going to be my pleasure to do now that Ben is retired. And I will have to get in touch with Alex and Ben and find out just what that entails. But since I only heard about it at 2:30 this afternoon, I can't tell you much more.
okay. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Carl, didn't we make a motion previously that once the reports were in, we would issue the payment? Do you want a new motion now in place?
I think we made a motion not to make the payment until everything was taken care of, but I move to authorize payment of the Tata and Howard amendment in the amount of $7,000.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we authorize payment to Tata and Howard of $7,000. Is there any further discussion? All those
Yeah,
in
well-
favor? Oh, sorry.
What
Go
was-
ahead, Rob.
What was that payment for?
This payment is, oh, Carl, you're gonna have to refresh my memory.
This payment was for
Services provided by Tata and
Services-
Howard.
services provided, gee.
Was it for the blower piping?
Mm,
I mean, the $1 million we paid him wasn't enough.
yeah, no, it wasn't. Yeah, it was for things like blower piping and ServPro and all those miscellaneous things coming out of the money that
Yep.
they withheld from Penta.
Of course.
And
Yep. Okay.
my
That's fine.
feeling is it's not worth fighting over. They
This one-
contacted USDA and USDA said it was okay to send the bill, so I don't think we've got, well,
So
Yeah.
they sent the bill. I just wouldn't pay him. It's just my
well,
opinion.
we have money in the amount that we got from the last funds of the grant will cover it.
Okay.
And we don't have anything else to spend that $7,000 on because USDA did not approve the ServPro. So,
Yeah, so I can read it to you from the amendment itself. Basically, it is for additional services or modifications to services set forth above. So it's basically project management.
Yeah.
All right, we have a motion and a second on the table. Are there any other questions or discussion? All those in favor, show by hand. Unanimous. Okay, thank you. That takes care of the amendment 6. Wastewater treatment plant, other issues. It's great to have you here, Rob. And I did
Yep.
receive your message to me regarding payment for those bills that I showed you.
I believe we ordered that stuff when we had issues with the VFDs. I mean, the UVs. So those are legit bills
Okay,
for the light bulbs and parts. I did throw out an email and have not heard back from the blower installation company. So that was last week, middle of last week. So I'll reach out again to him.
okay,
And find out if, like I said, hopefully he'll reach back to me, but if he's busy, they're busy. I don't, like I said, that's what he said. He was gonna try to fit us in. So that's
Okay.
all I can tell you this time. I do know for a fact that the air settings that LCS, Tom Allen had set up for us where it comes on every hour and shuts off in that room works. Because we were trying to switch it from summer to winter and it went like 2 or 3 days where it was off because of operator complications with how it worked. And the moisture came back. The droplets came back and came back almost 2 days. And then the system was on. The air exchange was like on all the time. And then it went away. So now we've got it on. And then we're just gonna play with the times to see where it's gonna work the best. Because summer it was on, I think, 20 minutes every hour. And it's winter time, it's gonna be, I think it was set for 2 minutes every hour. So we might have to play with that where it's on, 3 minutes, whatever is going to work. That's the whole thing. We just didn't want it on too long to bring in all that cold air, then have to heat the building up and then kind of waste the propane type of stuff. So, but so
great.
by trial by error, it actually does work. So,
Okay, good to know.
yeah.
Anything else you want to bring before us? You have our undivided attention, Rob.
I can't think of anything. Everything else just getting ready for winter. Everything
Okay.
else is good. Good,
Okay.
I believe.
I did talk to the fire station about whether they wanted to move the antique truck and they said not now, maybe next year.
Yeah, when I talked to Hart, it was more of when they built the station to house it there. But the concern was the length of the truck. And I gave them the length of what we have for the size storage, what size the garage is. So I haven't heard back.
Okay, well, it sounds like you guys can work it out.
Yep.
Matt, I'm sorry, I missed your comment.
I wondered if he filled it up yet.
Have I filled it up yet? Well,
Yeah.
it's got stuff. It's got some stuff in it, but yeah, no, I don't want to put my thing was to put a shelf at the end, at the very end of the back of it. But if they're going to put the truck there, I don't want to put 2-foot shelf and then have it, short by 2 feet, getting the fire truck in there.
Yeah.
Especially if they build a new fire station.
Yeah.
So.
Rick, did you have a comment?
Wasn't that the purpose of building that shed, was to put that in there?
One of the.
Yeah, but
It was in my mind to give them more space at the fire station by moving the antique truck off the premises. So it's confusing to me.
No, it's to have a spot for it during construction. It's not to give them space. It's because right now it's housed in the area that they wouldn't use for much of anything.
Okay. Other discussion about the wastewater treatment plant? We're moving on to the minutes for approval from November 1st. There was one date in there that looked like you mistyped it, Carl. Do you know the date I'm talking about?
No.
Okay, I'll get it up and I think I printed it out. It seems to me it said 2011 and it should have said 2021.
Okay, let me see. Yes, you're right. Under the Athens fire coverage. I will make that correction.
Is anyone interested in making a motion to approve the minutes of November 1st? Rick?
So made.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Matt seconds it. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, please show with your hand. And it's unanimous. Okay, the warrant, to which I need to add $7,000.
Do we need to add it? We already moved to approve it.
Well, it needs to be paid. It hasn't gone through on a warrant before.
No, but I mean, didn't we just move to approve payment?
Mhm.
Well, typically what I do is to anything that I want Sarah to write a check for, I make sure to have included in the warrant. If you feel that's not necessary, I can leave it out, but that's been my.
I guess if that's how you work with Sarah, that's fine.
Okay, so I am going to put
We won't pay
amendment.
it twice.
So this is now paid to Tata and Howard, correct?
Yes. You have the invoice?
I don't know at
What's
this
the
point.
amount?
I don't know. I can get it. I actually spent the day away. So
Okay. I will send it to you in case you didn't get the email from them.
I'm sure I do. But sure, if you'd like to.
I'll do that.
And I'd agree that it should be on the warrant, even if we approve, we approve to spend it, but this is what tells Sarah or whoever the treasurer is what to pay.
Okay.
Okay, so it says pay to Tata and Howard for engineering services from the wastewater treatment plant upgrade fund, $7,000. That brings the total payments covered by the warrant of November 15th to $14,079.77. Can you all see that on the screen share?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Is anyone interested in making a motion regarding this warrant?
I move that we approve the warrant of 13 invoices for a total of $14,079.77.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Matt seconds it. All those in favor, show with raising your hand. And it passes unanimously. All right, other business. I remind you that we are scheduled to attend a joint board meeting on November 30th to be held in the Rockingham Lower Theater, where the select board meetings are held. Are there questions on that? Yes, Carl.
Yeah, will that be something we can attend by Zoom?
Yes.
Okay.
I believe the agenda has already been posted. I can check on that for you all. Let's see. Sorry, I should have done this beforehand. Joint meetings. No, the agenda is not up yet. I'm sorry, the last agenda is September 29th. So we should see that agenda soon. But I'd be very surprised if there isn't a Zoom link for attending it. That's the way they've been doing all of theirs. Carl, is that a question?
No, I'm sorry, no. I'm
Okay.
just holding my pen next to my ear.
All right, items for the next meeting, December 6th. It sounds like we will see the MSK invoice. I will certainly ask Scott to be put on his list for a meeting with the engineers. Rick, I heard you saying that you have plenty of Zoom meetings to attend and don't feel the need to join that one. What about you, Carl, and you, Matt?
I would like to be in on it.
Okay.
You can send me the info. I'm not sure I'll attend, but guess if I know where to go and when.
Remember, if 3 of us join, then it has to be a warned meeting anyway, so.
Yep.
I'm not going.
Seriously? Okay. Good point. All right, so it'll just be Carl and me, and I will put out the word if I can't go, thus opening up a space for someone else. Rick, do you know if Ellen is likely to want to attend? I should ask her.
I have no
why
idea.
would you know? Okay. Anything else for the next meeting, December 6th? And the meeting after that will be the 20th. Be great if we could skip a meeting in December since we didn't skip one in August.
All right. Make
Are
it
we
happen.
doing Secret Santa? We get Carl to dress up as Santa for a Christmas meeting?
I think that would be very
Whoa.
appropriate. All right, are we ready? There is no need for an executive session, I assume, unless you're sitting on something.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion to adjourn. Okay. Hearing no objection, we're out. Thank
Bye.
you all.